Hey, everybody. Happy Thursday. It's great to be here. Hey, Deb. Good to see
Hi.
you.
Good to
Uh,
see you too.
yeah, in my new office. I'm so excited. Wait till I get the wall done.
Yes,
Um,
it's a great color.
yeah, thank you. Thank you. So, we're going to talk today about a really interesting subject. We usually talk about gender or ethnicity, and today we're talking about generations, right?
Hmm. Yep. Yep.
Yes.
Yeah. So I don't know if you want to show the graphic that we have just really
Sure.
quickly, but
I love graphics. I love a good graphic.
I know you do. And what the graphic is going to show is that currently in the workplace, as we can see, there are 4 generations. So there are baby boomers, Gen X, millennials, and Generation Z. And over the next, I don't know, 4 years or so, as you can tell from the chart, the boomers are going to start to be leaving the workplace. They're really going to start to be retiring. So what we wanted to talk about today, I think, was the importance of having multi-generations in the workplace and what are the benefits of having that and why is it important and incumbent upon a business to have those multi-generational workplaces. What is good for the bottom line of that business?
So
So,
important.
go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, it's just so important to understand when we talk about diversity, equity, inclusion, people automatically go to ethnicity, race, gender. And I just want to be very clear just how broad diversity is, right? And so when you consider how broad diversity is, and then you think about inclusion and making sure everyone has a seat at the table, there are going to be different tables and there are going to be different seats. But understanding that generational diversity is really important. And I don't think we talk about it enough.
Yep. Agree. And I think so. Let's talk about the first benefit of having these multi generations. And I think the first one we can talk about are learning opportunities because each of the generations has a different level of experience, has different kinds of experiences, and has been in the workplace varied amount of time, so their perspectives are different. There's so much opportunity for people to teach one another in every group. So, you have the boomers who have years and years of experience who can kind of mentor people and, really teach and have skills around leadership. And then you have the younger generations, the Z and the millennials, who might know more about tech.
Right. And so when you think about what the team looks like, it seems separate, but it's not because we can learn from each other. There have been situations where I've spoken to boomers who have a boss who's Gen X, right? And that whole understand, oh, well, they're younger than me, right? But they bring a different skill. And if we are open-minded and understand that we can learn from each other in an inclusive culture, then we'll be better for it. We'll be better for it. Your business is better for it. So that's the first pillar.
Yep.
Constant learning.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. Somebody's vacuuming out in the hallway.
Oh, that's great. Constant learning. Always be curious and approach new people or new experiences and, oh wow, this is a person who I can learn from and they can learn from me.
Absolutely. And then I mentioned it briefly as I was talking about learning, but certainly the topic of mentoring is an important one too. If you have diverse generations, they can mentor each other. Because the younger generations, they have that technical skill. They have that sort of ability to really be efficient in the way they use technology to get their jobs done. And then you have the Gen X and the boomers who are more knowledgeable around leadership. And I think reverse mentoring and mentoring each other is a plus. And it also, I think for the Gen Z and the millennials, I don't know what you've seen, but I think they want to be acknowledged and recognized and respected for what, even though they're been in the workplace shorter amount of time, they want to be respected for what they do know. So mentoring in all different ways can definitely be great for for the workplace.
Oh, I agree. You know, and anyone who knows me knows my take on that. I think mentoring is important. I think mentoring can happen outside of the workplace too. And you know, to me, mentoring is just being an informed and respected advisor. And so you should bring that to anything you do. If you meet someone who needs a little help or a little advice, you know, if they're open to it, bring that to what you do. I am a strong proponent in the workplace for sponsorship. You know, I think it needs to go beyond mentoring. As we, and especially as we think about inclusion, equity, you know, in order for young people to get the exposure, not young, but young in your career or new to a company, or just someone who needs to move forward through into leadership or for their future, their career. In most cases, sponsorship is what's necessary. Now, it doesn't happen in all companies, but because, you know, it depends on what your structure is, but I firmly recommend sponsorship. I think it's important. And the difference between sponsorship and mentoring is that with mentoring, you know, you have a mentee, you have conversations, you share your advice. With sponsorship, you have a protege. And so with a protege, you have a responsibility to them to ensure that they have the training they need, they get the exposure. You are speaking on their behalf when they aren't in the room, and that you're responsible for that person's success. And so your commitment to it is a little different. You know, your commitment to your sponsor is a little different. So, and you would have different types of conversations with your sponsor versus your mentor. So I recommend companies definitely, you know, institute sponsorship programs. And if you need help with setting that up, I'm here. But it's really important, and it makes the difference. You know, all research supports that.
Yeah. And I also think that if you, just to tag onto that for a second, if you've been sponsored, you are more likely to be a sponsor. And I think the more people that get it will then see the value in it, and they will want to do it. So I definitely agree. And I think just the final thing to talk about is the idea, we've talked about the different skills and the diversity that each one of these generations brings to the workplace. But what we don't want to happen is, you know, you see these charts. You know, I went on just to look for different ways to express the differences in the generations. And I tell you, there's numerous kinds of charts, and some of them are very wordy and hard to read, and they have a lot of information. But really, you have to be careful that you don't stereotype people, because not everybody fits into a box in any aspect of their lives, but certainly generationally, you know, you have people who don't kind of fit the mold of what we're saying. So these are more general statements about each of the generations, and that we should value the things about them. But let's not forget that there are people like myself who sort of, I'm a boomer by year, but probably more of a Gen Xer by sensibility. And I am pretty tech savvy, or I try to be. You know, when I don't know something, I try to learn it. So I don't want people to assume that I don't have that ability. And on the other side of the spectrum, you know, you may have some very new to the workplace Gen Zs who actually have a natural ability to lead, and they can be very, very early, strong leaders. So we don't want to make assumptions about how people work, or how many hours they work, or how they do their work. We should look at each individual and then try to make them be their very best.
I think that's a great point. The other point I'd like to make when we consider the generations, and this is to current business owners or leaders who are, you know, in the me generation, or the boomer or Gen X. When we look at this chart and you see that in 4 years, boomers and Gen X are going to be 25% of the workforce there, give or take. So that means that 75% of the workforce are millennials and Gen Z. And the one thing that they have in common, and I appreciate this, and honestly wish that as a Gen Xer, I had more of this when I was in corporate America. But when we were coming up, you had to leave your personal life at the door or in the car, right?
Mm-hmm.
You didn't talk about that. It wasn't a part of your work personality. It just, you did not. And if you did, I mean, there were companies that in your review, if you brought personal issues or social issues, that was a part of your review. It's a different time because millennials, Gen Z, they bring their authentic self. They don't leave anything at the door. You know, they put it in a backpack and it is with them. And that is a great thing because I think bringing more of yourself, you can relate more with your customer, you know, whoever that customer is. But the important thing to note is in order for that to be productive and to work together, you need to have a culture that is about accountability, right? So you have to be accountable to yourself and to each other and understand where each person comes from, which leads to empathy, which supports a culture that invites people being uncomfortably comfortable and engaging in courageous conversation. It also is supportive of their ideas about what is important. You know, when they talk to companies and they're interviewing with companies, they are making decisions not only on the company's business profile, they're making decisions on their social. What do you do for social justice? What does your training program look like? How do you support your employees? Where do you stand on inclusion and equity? And if you're not on the right side of that, then you could very well lose a very talented future leader for your company. Mm-hmm. And I applaud those two generations because it's so important, because that is the future. So think about that when you're making decisions now on how do I prepare my corporation to be ready for the future workforce. And the future is 2025, it's 2021, and it's not January. And so, you know, just think about what that investment looks like and how you can get there. And it's not just plopping in a DEI officer. It's really, you know, working with someone who understands your business and understands culture and the importance of inclusion and equity.
Yeah, and those are all great points. And you know, just one last thing, because this topic is so broad, it can go on. But as I've been looking at different job opportunities myself, and I start to see the benefits that are offered, you know, companies put on their website, these are our benefits. It's really started to, you know, based on kind of what you're saying, it's sort of started to move from, you know, pool tables and free lunches to paid time to volunteer, to bring your pandemic pet with you, to a versatile, you know, hybrid remote work situation. So the benefits start to reflect what the needs of the generation are, but
and their values.
And their values. So again, this can be a topic that would go on. I'm going to give you the last word here for our bottom line. What are your thoughts?
So my bottom line is, it's about inclusion and it's about strengths. And if we approach every person we meet in the sense that I know what you can bring to the table, what are your strengths? Here are my strengths. And we start there, as opposed to the flip side of that, where we're looking at stereotyping or, oh, Gen Z is this, or always look at a person's strengths. And when we complement each other's strengths, we become better, the company becomes better, and we can really make positive good and profitable good. So that's my bottom line. It's all about our strengths.
I think that's great. And next week, I think we're going to look at the differences between mentorship and sponsorship, which should be a really good topic to dig into. And well, thanks. This was great today, and thanks everybody who's listened in. And you know, if you commented or have any comments, please do let us know. Thank you so much.
All right, take care. Happy Thursday. Be safe, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye, guys.